The Global Shapers community was launched 1 year ago as the World Economics Forum's drive to engage youth in its events and activities, particularly leaders under the age of 30. This group here represents the African Global Shapers. Globally, there are 157 hubs around the world, with more than 1,200 shapers as members. Here on the continent, there are 38 hubs in sub-Saharan Africa and an additional 12 in North Africa. We gather on a regular basis and engage in activities and projects to benefit our local environment. Here's how our session will run. First, we will do a round of introductions. Then President Kagame will make opening remarks. After his remarks, we move to questions and answers, where the floor will be open, to open to questions from the floor, sorry. So please let us begin the round of introductions. Please stand up, state your name, the name of your hub, and the country that your hub is in. Please let us be quick. We will go around the room and let's start from here.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Amin. I'm from the Algiers hub in Algeria.
My name is Simi Fajamirakum, and I'm from the Abuja hub in Nigeria. Nice meeting you, sir.
Good morning. I'm Danny Taka of the Twane hub in South Africa.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Saif Borshi, and I am from Tunis hub, Tunisia.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Yawa Hansen Kwao. I'm from the Accra hub in Ghana.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Halima Ahmed, and I am from the Mogadishu hub, Somalia.
Good morning, Mr. President. I am Jihad Abu Nafisa from the Khartoum hub in Sudan.
Morning, Mr. President. My name is Jonathan Liebman. I'm from the Johannesburg hub in South Africa.
Morning, Mr. President. I'm Deborah Ahenkra from the Accra hub in Ghana.
Morning, Mr. President. I'm Henry from the Cape Town hub, South Africa.
Morning, Mr. President. I'm Sylvester Chauke from the Johannesburg hub in South Africa.
Good morning. I'm Kopano Matlamabaso from the Johannesburg hub in South Africa.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Ann Mwema from the Nairobi hub in Kenya.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Tirun Jasper Salmon from Monrovia hub, Liberia.
Good morning, Mr. President. I am Abane Stanley from the Douala hub in Cameroon.
Good morning, sir. My name is Michael from the Nairobi hub, Kenya, and good to have you here.
Good morning, Your Excellency. Good morning, young shippers. I'm Tony Sanganira from Rwanda, working for the Rwanda Development Board.
I'm Enes Rozindaza, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources, Rwanda. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Jallo Aissatou Marli from Guinea-Conakry, the Conakry hub. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Yabre Arsene from Burkina Faso hub.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Mohamed Dukan, represent Bamako hub, Mali.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Kemi Lala Akindoju, Lagos hub, Nigeria.
Good morning, Mr. President. Ebuka Obi Uchendu from the Lagos hub in Nigeria.
Good morning, Mr. President. Yusuf Hatira from the Tunis hub, Tunisia.
Thank you. I would like to invite His Excellency President Kagame to please make opening remarks to formally begin our session.
Thank you very much. Good morning once again. I start off on 2 points. One, I'm very happy and grateful and thankful for your invitation to come and be with you this morning. So it is of great pleasure for me to have this moment with you. The second, very important, this gathering of global shapers, mainly from our continent of Africa, gives me great hope about the direction our continent is taking, and I think there is a lot that is going to happen on the basis of your efforts as young people and who have taken on that responsibility and feel that it is your responsibility to carry on with the tasks of relating to where Africa wants to be. It's very encouraging. I thank you for that. Of course, the third, but the last and the least, is that I would have expected to see one of you coming from Rwanda. So I hope next time we shall have one or two more joining you for this, which is a good, for a good cause. Now, let me say, on the basis of the hope I have, and I think which everyone else would have by seeing you here and, you know, getting together, networking from different countries and thinking about how in shaping what matters and what happens globally, it starts with you as individuals. And then you think about how in self-realization you are going to affect others, the communities, the societies. And therefore, this is what gives me hope, because when you see young people like you thinking about it this way, and even given the knowledge of, if you look at a number of things, I am told under 24 young people constitute 60% of Africa's population. This is huge, 60%, under 24. So later on, if you add on then the others who make the under 30, for example, even that's even more. It's about the whole continent. It's really dominated by young people. While in some cases people may want to see this as a challenge, which it may be, because it's a challenge in a sense that this is where the first investments Africa has to make will start from. The first investments will start from our young people. So how do governments, how do nations, how do we invest in these young people so that in their different ways, in their different talents, they really drive Africa in its quest to grow and develop. Well, while those aspects of investments form a challenge, and where they have not been made, of course, there is the opposite effect. If you have young people who have no education, who have no employment, who have, if these right investments have not been made, then it turns into a problem indeed, as you understand. But I work from the side of optimism that we can all be able to make the right investments in our young people so that now we go to the side of the opportunities that are there, immense opportunities. So you can imagine, therefore, if we have our young people, the majority of our citizens, empowered, educated, and the environment facilitating them to fulfill themselves and realize their full potential, you can imagine what energy, what strength, what growth, what development is unleashed from that. This is now the beauty of it. So I think that's where we should therefore mainly focus. In my view, that's where Rwanda comes from. That's where I'm sure many other African countries are coming from, and really want to see that we make the right investments so that we facilitate this growth and this energy to be unleashed of our young people. But as I said, nobody will do it for the other. Somehow there are shared responsibilities, but let me start with our individual responsibilities. It's a message to you, if you will, as young people. First, you have to take on that challenge personally, at your personal level. Say, what is it that I can do, whether from within the means I have or from the facilitation that governments will avail? What is it that I can do that is within me, that I can bring to bear on personal growth, but at the same time immediately link it with what happens, what can I contribute, what can any one of you contribute to the community, to the society. So the two are tied together. It's you, it's the community. And that's how Africa will grow. When it is you, when you say, what can I do for myself to realize my full potential, build or discover my talent and build on that, you are doing it with a sense of purpose. It's not with a sense of selfishness. It's not what there is or that means for you just as a person and it ends there. It is what that means to you, and equally important, or even more importantly, to the society. Because in the end, if the society is not getting better, or is not better off because of our collective efforts, then it even affects our personal growth. So we find we are engaged in struggles that are not making any headways. We are stuck with ourselves. That's why it is important, from individual personal growth to community growth, and to which you make a contribution. This is what I wanted to discuss with you this morning, at least to start off the conversation, which I think is probably more important than me talking most of the time. I would rather listen to you and also engage with you in whatever you think we can engage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Shapers, the floor is yours. I will take 3 questions at a time. Please keep your question brief and to the point. So please, can I get the first question?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Again, I'm Kopano from the South Africa Hub. My question to you, sir, is many of our leaders on our continent started off as young people with great visions for our continent, meaning well, wanting to change, wanting to transform things. But something happens once they get their hands on power, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that and how we can prevent that from happening.
That's a complicated one.
Second question.
My second question is, now that we know that 60% of Africa are under the age of 30 or 24, depending on the stats, how or what do you think needs to happen in terms of governments really engaging young people? I do believe that a lot of young people like us who really want to get involved in government and in politics, but something happens that allows for governments not to almost like push back in that regard.
My name is Tinu Jasper Salmon from the Monrovia Hub, Liberia. Mr. President, my question to you has to do with the resources of Africa. You being the president, looking at the resources the way they are handled by some of our African leaders. Now look at the upcoming generation, the incoming generation, that is the youth. How do we feel? How do you feel as a leader and in the mind of all African leaders? How do you feel misappropriating and taking the resources that we're squandering for their own personal use? How do you feel?
Now, let me start with the first question. I always want to look at, let me start with the positive side. And also from the point that I don't think this should be or is going to be the trend for everyone, for every leader in Africa. Maybe there are those who may not perform quite to the expectation and go the same path you've talked about. Start well, do well, end badly. Yes, and I'm sure I understand what you're talking about because things have happened and are there to be seen by everyone. But it is it's unfortunate, it should not happen, and I think maybe it's something that also you need to internalize, be challenged by, so that when the burden falls on you to be a leader at any level, or even at that level, you actually don't end up doing that same thing you used to criticize when you were young. You see what I mean? Those that have performed so badly or that it has happened to, we may look at it as the past, even if we have a bit of it in the present. But I'm saying, shouldn't it also form lessons for young people, for upcoming leaders, so that they actually don't end up following, so that at least we have some cutoff point. Let's have those of us in our time who are like that, but let's end that with that group, so that the young people who are following in the footsteps, who will be the leaders of, well, they are leaders of today, but they become higher leaders of tomorrow. They actually don't follow the same trend. So that is, and there is another way of challenging it even in the present, because the way you are organized, which I talked about earlier, that is very important. In this way of organization, in reaching more people across Africa, young people who have decided, who have made the choice to engage, to be, you know, the people are going to make change in their own societies or in their countries, to actually address this problem at their level. I'm sure some of you, all of you actually, are not too young to participate in politics. The youth should play their role in their political activities of different kinds of their choice, of your choice, in your own countries. And in that, you need to question this. You need to argue for a different direction that leaders should take, because it doesn't end up with those just individuals who do that. if it is allowed, if it passes unchallenged, then it becomes a trend that everyone who comes to read will follow. So it will start with those who don't carry any baggage. You see? It is too late for some people to tell them, so no, don't behave like this, when they are already immersed in it up to here. So I think it is a bit too late for some people, but it is not too late for young people who will be the leaders tomorrow. And we keep hoping that even in today, there are some leaders who will avoid that kind of direction, will avoid the route that some of those you are mentioning have taken. And it's something that is discussed at different times, at different levels, in different forums, and we really talk about it, even ourselves. Sometimes not with much success, because I told you there are already people who are in it and can't get out of it. But we hope that that time will come to pass and we have people coming who understand fully the responsibilities and the right way to exercise those responsibilities, and make sure that we avoid what I also alluded to in my opening remarks, that people tend to serve themselves rather than serve communities and societies. So when they are in position of power, they are the beginning and end of everything. So that's a problem. That's a big problem. But if you serve and understand that, yes, there is your part, but there is the bigger part of those you serve, then I think you can easily avoid that kind of problem. On the other hand, it's tricky. You have seen where in some countries, I discovered some of you come from those countries. Some people have had to do the unexpected to actually challenge this and say, we don't want you. And they've got rid of them, isn't it? So we are not even talking about things that don't have examples already. Yes, some people have told, have come up and said, enough is enough. You have now heard, and I think some of those who are moving in that direction are taking notice. They know that it can happen to them if they don't really change the course of events and become responsive to these arguments, to these needs of their citizens and societies. So it's a complex area, but we are not entirely powerless to do something about it. More so, the young people should not be and are not powerless to do something about it, at least in terms of voicing, even resentment for it, and challenging it in terms of argument, and say this is not correct. And then in practice, depending on some of these networks and other things you do in your own countries together with others and other citizens, you can challenge the kind of thing and say, we want to go in a different direction. Then the second was
6% of the 24, 6%.
The youth, yes. You see, as I said again earlier, if governments fail to realize the power and the future there is for nations in the youth, then those governments are doing the wrong thing, and it is consequential. So one thing then is to avoid the consequences of not realizing that. And that's why I said they have got to be not only the right investments in the young people right from very young age and as they grow. And I started with education. I say how we do it, for example, in our own area, what we really focus deliberately on. We invest in health, in education, and that means we are having increasingly a healthy population, but a population that should be educated, that should acquire knowledge and have skills to be able to exercise this for development of our nations. Therefore, if governments would be making these kinds of investments, they also need then to harness, the power, the potential in these investments they have already made. And that is the power that lies within the youth in the development of their talents and skills and education and their health and energy. So it's up to governments. Where governments have harnessed this, they have realized a lot of growth and benefits. Where governments have not done that, you also see it. You see where they stand. Whether globally or even continentally, you see their level is lower than where the level where this has been focused on stands. And this is really what explains everything. The resources. The resources part, let me quickly say something. There is something that has come to pass as a catchword or something. Something called the resource curse. You have heard about that? I don't agree with that thing. For me, resources should not be a curse, and need not to be a curse. In fact, my problem is I'm dealing with the curse of poverty. So if I had resources, I would probably be, if there was this, like Africa has enormous natural resources and other resources, we should be able to turn this and into something beneficial to Africa and our countries. It shouldn't be, it need not be a problem. It is a solution, because some of the things we are dealing with need resources. But the first resource, the first asset to leverage into a resource is the human asset, the human being. The human resource is the most important. It's the most important asset. Even for other resources, I would use them to invest in these human beings, in our citizens. Otherwise, you see, whether you are managing resources or whether you are dealing with poverty, you are facing a challenge of governance. How do you use governance for the good in terms of available resources, whether they are abundant resources or few resources? It's an issue of governance, really. How do you manage them? How do you put them to the right use for the benefit of societies, for development of our societies, or for the growth of Africa? I think this is, again, a challenge. That's something you need to think about. Yes, it doesn't mean if a country discovers they have a lot of oil that, the country is dead. Why should it die because of oil? You see, you should be able to use that oil for the development of their citizens. Yes, if they are not dying of poverty and disappearing from the surface of this earth because of poverty, why should they disappear because of wealth? I mean, it must be something, because if we focus on the right kinds of governance principles that focus on development of people and correct and proper management of resources, I don't see why. I come from a part of the world where scarcity is the norm, right? So, and that has taught some of us to do more with less, to create value where it is not, where there isn't, to try and use the meager resources that are there to move to another stage. Now, I think I would not have a problem with managing resources. If I have managed scarcity, I shouldn't have a problem managing resources. So I think Africa is blessed on one hand in terms of resources, and mainly it has the human resource that we should focus on, and the rest is governance, is leadership that provides the vision for its citizens and manage properly these resources for development.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I have a comment and I have a question, but it's brief. The first comment is to thank you for giving us a shiny example, because a couple of months ago we were in a strategy session in our office, and a group which is filled of a group of young people, and we're trying to find out how to deal with a challenge and turn a negative situation into a positive. And then we had a copy of the Africa report on Rwanda and the little piece, and seeing all the conference buildings and the amazing things that are being done. And it's not all the time you get to say thank you in person, so thank you, number one. And number two, my question is, in a lot of these meetings we talk about leadership and governance in theory, but we can't, we're not in that stage in science where we can replicate people's DNAs. But I mean, how are we grooming, how are we deliberately grooming upcoming leaders to adopt the value systems that, that teach people that this is not, is for the community, it's not for your personal pocket and things like that. What are the action steps that we're actually taking? Because I hear a lot of the theoretical, but not the action steps.
I would just have to remind everyone that this session is off the record, so no tweeting during the session, please.
I have, well, two questions in one. What do you wish you had known about leadership? No, okay. What do you wish, when you were 30 years and below, what two things do you wish you had known about being a leader that you know now, that you didn't know then? And what two things do you wish you had known about being a person that you know now and you didn't know then? So two about leadership and two about being a person.
Firstly, I would want to express my appreciation for your appreciation of Rwandan women. That has been rather inspiring and an example that we hope that other African presidents follow through. All right, and of course, as an African young woman, I'm asking, what role do you envision for us in shaping the continent's future?
First one was how to go in challenge regarding Rwanda conference.
Right. So it's a complex area about leadership and how it plays on societies and encourages various systems to develop and how this bears on the kinds of progress one is. I think that's the question, maybe. Leadership, first of all, has two parts which are a bit complicated. One, there are two parts. One is nature, something you alluded to, maybe the person, there's the character of the person, the personality, something to do with the science and biology and things which we have no means to tamper with and alter during when you have the person. But there's another part of it which is nature, the environment, the upbringing, the situation you grow up in. Also that tends to, the two combine maybe in a person, and depending on, and in that person will have the ability or capacity to deal with issues depending on these two things, nature and nurture. Nurture is the upbringing, how you grow through the whole, what has affected you in your life, and whether it's in school, at home, and at work, and the political environment, you know, all these things have a bearing on the person. But from that, if you go into the real thing, let's say I can speak to my own situation in Rwanda, what we have tried to do, faced with so many challenges and having to rebuild the country from scratch and, you know, again, bring back life to being normal. There are two things one we have to do or encourage. First, you try and involve people in defining what the problem is, that everybody in the country faces, and we should own it together. But when there is that leadership, the leadership participates at a higher level in this definition of the problem, but has to work with others to make sure that not only do you define the problem, you also choose the path that you will follow in having to deal with all these problems. And there is the common thing that is talked about. Leaders, when they tell people or discuss with the people and come up with ideas of what needs to be done to deal with the problems that have been identified, the common thing is people will say the right thing, but will end up doing not the right thing. This is very common. It's easy for us to sit here and say everything that is right. When we step out of the door, probably a big percentage of the, will do things that are contrary to what they even said was the right thing to do. So there has to be, therefore, a clear message of a definition of the problem, of how to deal with the problem. And then there has to be demonstration that you are actually doing what needs to be done that has been agreed, and therefore you put systems in place to remind, to check, to hold people accountable, and so on and so forth. You don't leave it to chance. You don't leave it to people to say, okay, they've said they understand it, they will do it. No. You always keep reminding. You always keep saying, there is something we are not doing right here. Or the systems that have been created, that need to be created, will always tell you, they'll keep measuring the progress and informing you, and you can feed back to the society where these people are operating or where leadership is operating to move another step. So it's very hard because you can ask another complicated question. You can say, but why does it then happen in one place and doesn't happen in another place? You see, that would be a valid question. And probably a very complicated question because I can only be responsible for my place, not another place. You see, if you can speak, why does it happen in your place? Because we insist, for example, for us to make a difference, to say we must create a system, we must build institutions where things must work. If we say we are going to invest in education, we must see education being invested in. If money goes there, we want to know that that money has gone to develop education. It has not gone there and then somebody pockets it and runs with it, and we stay there assuming that actually we have invested in education when actually nothing happened. So we need to keep pursuing, these goals and putting in a lot of effort to make things happen. So it will happen in some places, it may happen, it may not happen in other places. I don't think there's much we can do other than talking about it, discussing it, challenging it, even having fights over it. Sometimes we have got to fight for these things. I've lived in a world where everything has got to be fought for. For my life of now 35 years, I've lived in a situation where everything, for it to get right, you've got to fight for it. Literally fight for it, not just fight in a very nice way, sometimes a very hard way. But this is how the situation is. Yeah, there are other places where things have gone right for people, and it has been for years, and it has become a way of life without a fight. You see what I mean? So it's a complex area. Was to do. Oh, what I know now that I didn't know before. In fact, I am happy that there are things I'm knowing now that I didn't know before. Because if I had known before, then maybe I wouldn't be where I am. I would have taken another route. So I'm happy that I learn a lot of things as I go along. This is to say, I think it is important, and as young people, I would emphasize it is important to learn. Don't miss a moment of learning. And in fact, never assume that you know. That is the worst thing. It's always to assume actually that you don't know, and listen, and learn, and then you decide what to do with it later on. But if one assumes that they know and they don't learn, there comes a time they are really faced with serious problems and they find they are at a loss. They don't know what to do. But if, as people grow and as they learn, then when a problem, even an unexpected problem or even very complex, comes up, they find they are equipped somehow to deal with the challenge. At least they have the courage to face it and think through it and then deal with it. So, first of all, what I've known today, say in the position I am in, is that leadership is a huge challenge. And let me also, in a positive way, warn you, it is a thankless responsibility. Don't expect to be there and to be thanked for every good thing you do. No. And maybe it is better it is that way. But it is for you who are still young, who are still growing, who are still going to carry heavier responsibilities ahead, just expect that nothing is easy, or nothing should be treated as being easy. Yes, always, if you find it is easy, well and good, celebrate that. But should you find it is difficult, don't run away from it. Deal with it. face it up front, be ready for that. And in fact, it's better to be prepared before than to want to be prepared at the point you are facing the problem. You see what I mean? So you have an opportunity as young people, as you grow, to build this capacity and to anticipate that actually everyday life brings challenges. So you anticipate challenges before they come your way and should be prepared psychologically, mentally, physically to deal with it rather than want to be prepared. So the only difference with that, when I was still very young, because of the kinds of environments I lived in, as I said earlier on, where it has always been a struggle, you have always got to fight for everything, it was a kind of preparation. I wasn't expecting anything to come easy my way. So I had, if you will, these hardships had a silver lining to it. They had a good training, mentally and in other ways. And it means don't throw the problem to somebody else. Always be ready to even make it your problem. If it is, make it your problem and deal with it. Don't say you'll address it another time or you'll push it to somebody else. No, make it your own and deal with it. Because even if you postpone it today, maybe you're going to meet it in a more complicated form tomorrow. So this is how, so in short, I'm lucky, or I'm happy that I didn't know then what I came to know now, because it would have probably added more burden I wasn't able to carry, I would not have been able to carry then than the fact that I'm able to carry that burden today. So as you grow, you tend to be more prepared to carry this kind of burden. You see, as we said, for us, the problems have shaped us in a way. Women, first of all, women have a right and have rights as men have rights. They have equal rights at a certain point. Second, in our societies, they form, by the way, a very big percentage. In fact, in Rwanda, women, I think 53%. Now, 53% of our population is something unless something has gone wrong in your mind, to keep this out of, development process, or to not want to bring their knowledge, their energy, their participation into this. It will not be a very clever way to deal with issues. So there is the issue of rights, there is the issue of the fact of their potential and their. So we had to make sure for us that in dealing with our problems, we make sure that every citizen is actually playing the rightful role they are supposed to be playing. And so that's how we focused on women. And we had women in our struggle, in our armed struggle. We have all along fighters with us in the struggle to liberate our country. So we couldn't keep them out after why would we have then, they are involved in fighting like anyone to liberate their country. How do you exclude them when it comes to peace building and development? So we have, for us, there was not even hesitation, there was no misunderstanding, there was no issue about women. Well, in fact, maybe we have even overdone it men are complaining. They think they think women are taking over everything. So we now have to deal with balancing and making sure that everybody feels they are having their right, contribution to their country's affairs.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Shippers, our time is almost up. I would like to thank everybody who helped to make this happen, especially President Kagame and his team. Please join me in another round of applause to thank President Kagame. Thank you very much.
I hope we can find yet another time. I would have enjoyed having more time with you and going into many other details.
Your Excellency, I would like to invite you to give us any parting words or to make closing remarks.
Well, simply, in my understanding and probably my experience, everything is possible. That's the starting point. Second, young people, because at one time I was like you, I was young, there is a lot in young people, in you, that maybe you haven't up to now realized there is. So every time you wake up in the morning, or every time in the evening you're going to sleep, have a moment and reflect on that, so that you bring out the best of you. Because there is. And you'll always discover there is something that you didn't know yesterday as you go along. And as you do things, bring that to, bring it out and make sure that it helps you deal with that. And of course, I will not end without, again, saying development, hard work, identifying what is good for you and what is good for your society, is something that is also associated with some level of discipline. Discipline meaning you really keep relating the value of your actions and the purpose you may want to serve. And I think you always want to serve what is good. Even if people do wrong things, they'll always be claiming they want to do good things, isn't it? So the good thing is there. So discipline means you keep focused and wanting to do what is good for you and also for the communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you. I would just end telling you that you are really our pride, my pride, in fact. So
you are my pride too.
And we really hope in the Francophone part if everyone can do. Thank you.
And now we're going to take a photo up at the front of the room. So if you want to gather.